these Gemini killings in the papers? You must get them to do that, Lieutenant. It's important.
The Gemini is dead.
No, I am not! I'm alive! I go on! I breathe! Look at me! Look at me! And tell me what you see!
Blatty had worked with Jason Miller. Of course he wanted Jason Miller. He went and talked to him and he realized that he was just too far gone. Jason, he was an alcoholic. And there is a thing called wet brain. Blatty didn't think he could memorize the lines, and there was no way that he could do the speeches. He cast me.
Tell the press that I am the Gemini lieutenant, or I will punish you.
You know, you read something, if it turns your stomach a little when you read it, you know, you got to do it, and it definitely turned my stomach, so. And I liked Blatty a lot. I had seen the Ninth Configuration, and I was a fan. I thought he did a beautiful job. I thought it was beautifully acted and really interesting. It was Exorcist 3, Legion, or, you know, it was both of them, but it was not, nobody really had, that I knew gave a shit. I think that the concept was that Exorcist 2 never existed. I think maybe if there was some kind of thing that Blatty was fighting on calling it Exorcist 3, it was probably because he vehemently hated Exorcist 2, as did we all. They were interested in getting people in and buying tickets.
Official business.
And they wanted control of that. And they were wrong.
I want the file on that man. Get it. Now!
First of all, George C. Scott is a big hero. I was a little scared of him at first, and all of my scenes were with him.
I don't believe you're the Gemini killer.
Oh, you are issuing a clear invitation to the dance.
What does that mean?
Never mind.
Scott was really fun. He's hysterical. He was walking around, we were talking about how hard it is to do these movies, and he said, yeah, he said, you know, it makes you want to, I want one of those movies, you know, where it's actor proof, you know, it's a lot of stunts and, you know, but I never heard somebody say actor proof. I used that line for years after that. You know, he has a reputation for being a bad boy. This was incredibly unfair because he was just a total professional, and he just didn't mince words.
Who was speaking to you?
And, you know, if something didn't work, you know, he was going to fix it. He wasn't going to go out there and do crap.
It is not in the file. It is not.
He was really great with me. I mean, there was one point where I asked him to leave because you know, he was there, and I had to look at a spot in the camera, you know, just to the right of the lens, and I couldn't have him there because I would look at him and I needed to focus on. I said, look, you know, but all the time before that, he listened time after time to me doing this forever speech with more than patience, totally involved.
There I was, so awfully dead in that electric chair. I didn't like it. Would you? It's upsetting.
I worked on the speech with Blatty to, I mean, a ridiculous extent. I mean, every line he had notes for, and I did it again and again and again and again. It's very dangerous to work like that. First scene we did, the first long speech we did worked really well. The second one was so fucking awful that they brought me in and made me watch it. And it was really, really boring. Every single line was perfect and completely, you know, it had no build, it was just not. And I was terrified, and Blatty and I went back and forth all weekend to you know, cut it and get it. And I went back on, and there was one cut, and so George was like, "Why did you cut that?" And I said, "Well, it's just," and he said, "You know, he's got you nuts. You know, there's a point when you just don't listen to directors. You know, you pick what's important and throw the rest away." And I just kind of went, duh. I knew that. So I did it, it flew. You know, it worked really well.
It isn't perfect.
Precision is not what you're looking for, because precision is death. You know, there's a difference between giving a director what he wants and what he needs than doing what somebody tells you to do. If you start doing what somebody tells you to do, then you're wrong.
Did you know that you are talking to an artist?
The woods are full of very, very talented people who are very, very smart, far smarter than I. And I'm a slow study. I mean, I don't memorize very easily. So I just worked and worked and worked and worked and worked and worked and worked on it. I did it so that, you know, I probably did it. I can't memorize. I won't know a line until I've done it 40 times, minimum. I don't do an audition until I've said every line 40 times, minimum.
I sometimes do special things to my victims. Things that are creative.
I had to play the Gemini killer as a human being, not as evil, to play him. But what I came to was playing somebody who was demonic. The Gemini killer was the son of a preacher. He was beaten, and he had a brother, and his brother was also beaten and locked. I forget what happened, but the father finally died. And the Gemini killer wanted to protect his brother. And he went to the hospital, and his brother was so freaked out that he explained under any circumstances would anybody be ever allowed to turn the light out. Somebody turned the light out. Some nurse who just said, "That's bullshit." And she went behind his back and turned the light out, and he died. And Gemini killer snapped. I think he was talking about what was good or evil, but he kind of had to treat evil as real. I really came to the conclusion after that he was dead wrong. That's not what he wrote at all. The entity that I was playing was kind of stuck in between worlds and was so consumed with revenge that he was getting revenge. But he had lost it.
He is inside with us! He will never get away! His pain won't end!
The way he was treated and what had really driven him crazy was what, you know, I guess made him evil, but it was very human.
Oh, gracious me. Was I raving?
And as long as I stuck to what was human, it worked.
Please forgive me. I'm mad.
But you can't relate to evil. There is no way that anything could ever be understood and played from that perspective.
Where was I? Oh, yes. The master. He was kind, you see. He brought me to our mutual acquaintance, Father Karras.
It's not unusual, but I think I had about 4 takes, maybe 2. Sometimes there may have been some takes where I just did it once. Every take is 20 minutes long. That's how big the magazine is. If you didn't get it in 20 minutes, you didn't get it. You had to do it again. A straitjacket was a scary thing. I mean, doing a 20-minute speech in a straitjacket is, you don't have a lot of options. The main thing is to relax, to remember what's important. You know, when you're rehearsing something and when you're getting to something, every single line has to be explored.
Oh, I'm just a traveling man. One who moves.
And when you explore it, you really explore it. You do it again, and 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 you do it again. And eventually it's Pavlov's dog. And the point of rehearsing, especially big monologues, is getting them there. And then remembering that there's no such thing as a monologue.
Life is fun.
It's a wonderful life, in fact.
I mean, the stuff that I saw that was in, I think it was electronically altered, when I saw the scene. I don't know. A lot of it wasn't. You know, I thought they were tasteful and pretty sparse enough that it didn't become this weird, non-human thing. It was there, you know, the song, I could never have done that.
Gloria lasset honor.
They had a playback, and I did the playback. I wouldn't have even been able to sing it. I would be too embarrassed. I can't sing, so it would just be. But I worked with the playback for a long time. I didn't sing, but I just quietly sang.
I like plays. The good ones, Shakespeare. I like Titus Andronicus the best. It's sweet.
I think the footage that you see now is not as good as the original.
Oh, few boos from the gallery, I see.
I've seen both of them, and the original was better.
It took a maximum effort that at last got me out of that cheap little coffin. Oh, poverty, disgusting.
I was much more settled into, I was much more a long-time prisoner. There was this feeling in them that I had spent years in the cell. That's something that happens, in time, when you're really, when you work on it, 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 you can get there. But if you're trying to do it to remember it or just bring it to life after, a couple of days of redoing the lines, it's not going to be there.
No!
The original was the ones that we did in the studio in Wilmington. The ones that we did in LA, I redid all of it, is all of what's in Exorcist 3. They took me out and put in Miller, Jason Miller. So I played the priest in the original. They called me 2 days before I had to shoot. I mean, they told me that they'd cut me out of the movie, and they were getting Jason Miller in, and that was it. And Blatty just, called me and said, "Look," he said, "your work is incredible in this thing, and I just want you to know that I mean, I'm not joking about that." But they really, they'd done some kind of study, and they have to use, for advertising, they have to use him. Well, they brought Jason Miller in, and he couldn't do it. So it just wouldn't work. And they went, "Well, we better get Brad back." So they called me up, and I said, "Look, I can't do that in 2 days. You're going to have to postpone it one more day, and you're going to have to book a hotel room because I can't work here, and give me a slave," which is code for PA. "I just need to do lines with him for 2 days, and then I can do it." And they did, and I did it. They rewrote some things. They wanted him more prominently there, and I was much less.
Well, why not, after all? I've been taught by the master.
When everybody got the script for the reshoot, I mean, George said, we were sitting there and looking, and George was looking at all of this stuff, and he said, "If Madonna doesn't come out and sing a song in the middle of this thing, I think the folks are going to be really disappointed." I mean, that was his It was a music video. It had, you know, it wasn't horror, it wasn't scary, it was just production. And that's how I felt when I saw it. The movie wasn't scary. And the original cut was, because it was a mystery. And it was trying to get to the bottom of what was going on, and things continued to happen. It was much more about the people. And there was no exorcist in it. It was just these rational people confronting something that was irrational. I think people were disappointed with Exorcist 3. A lot of people were.
Of course, it takes knowledge, pride in your work.
And I don't like stuff I'm in. I don't like watching myself. I personally don't like my acting. It doesn't matter if I agree with Blatty or disagree with Blatty. You know, I just like who he is. I liked him, and it was fun working with him, and he cared so much. You know, I mean, he really gave a shit. It's just the passion with which he talked about things, you know, and why things were so important to him. You don't have to, you know, people become, I mean, when people show you who they are, it's really very cool. When somebody decides to trust you, which he did, he trusted me. That's a cool thing. I didn't come to the same conclusion that he came to, but it was wonderful being exposed to somebody who came to the conclusion that they came to, and to work for them.
Did you get my message?